So yes, so for the first presentation of the groups around the country, we're going to have Neal from Wyoming talk about some of the events and outreach to media and family that they've done, and just to put this in context, you know, Wyoming is a state that is has some of the highest, for many years, had the highest fatality rate in the country, and still is, I think, about second. But it's also a state that up until 4 or 5 years ago, there was no real activist presence in the state. And that has really been transformed, and Dan will show us a little bit about sort of how that came about. So, Dan?
Go ahead, Dan.
If Dan is not available by the when Dan gets on, he can chime in, but I'll just go over this. I'll talk about the slides. So on the slide that you're seeing, Mary Jane Collins is an incredible woman who lost her 20-year-old grandson in a construction accident, and she really became an activist when the case was investigated. Wyoming has a state plan, and the initial fine and citation was something on the order of $13,000, which got reduced to $6,000. And this really you know, was a very powerful thing for the family, and she really started a campaign to really try and make sure that employers that where fatality cases were investigated and found you know, with violations, that there was a fine that was at least sent a message that this was something that needed to be changed in terms of for future workers and such. So Kathy Morgan is and I don't know if Dan was able to unmute himself, or
yeah,
if he's...
Dan looks like he's unmuted. He should be okay.
Okay. So if he chimes in, so Kathy Morgan, this is an example of a family member who lost her husband, and this is from her speech that was that was prepared for the Wyoming, one of the very early 3 years ago, the early Wyoming Worker Memorial Day event, and Dan wanted to talk about how his work with the family members has really he's really been able to kind of mentor and help family members, but essentially sort of validate what family members wanted to be talking about, and it's just an example how family members have so often really been able to speak from their hearts and deliver incredible stories and have a tremendous impact with a little help from organizers. It's another example of the Mary Jane Collins being at last year's Worker Memorial event in Wyoming. I'm hearing static. If somebody needs to mute themselves. It's just an example. The last of someone of a father who had lost his son in a construction fatality that was very, very helpful in being part of a report for Wyoming, and was going to actually participate in the event, but ended up not being able to because of the grief that he felt, and just was not at the last minute. Luckily, there was someone else, a community member, who was able to tell the story about this tragic fatality of a 20-year-old worker. And the last slide is about how various family members and others are so helpful in participating in these events. And Dan wanted to show on the right-hand slide that they set up a table so that any family members or community members or co-workers that come to the event can bring photos and memorabilia so that they can display some of their memories, and really just have those memories serve a purpose to try and try to prevent other families from experiencing this tremendous loss like they have. So so that's it for Wyoming, but for Houston, we want to show some of the work that's been done in Houston. Is Martha on the phone?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. So Martha, you could take over, telling a little bit about the slides that we're seeing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter, and everyone. In Houston, it's been taking relevance, this event that we are being organizing. And as you can see, we try to bring together many parties in our community in order to organize the event. And we try to get and develop a planning committee. And we bring the unions, for example, right here, the builder trades, all the unions involved in construction workers, the steel workers, communication workers of America, the FLCIO, of course, the labor workers, the neighborhood centers of people in the community, the Living Hope, that is an organization that is bringing together all those workers who are being disabled for any accidents, and they are trying to provide any medical attention or any medical support. So then after that, in the planning committee, we were very close with the OSHA local representative, which is Jim Shelton, but also with Sandra Bulldog, which is our community liaison with the South District's number 6. And right here is the opening of the event with some representatives of the workers and representatives of the union, the Secretary Treasurer, Richard Chow, and we bring all together all the families. And this planning committee that we have, we also work together with all the consulates, Mexican consulate, Guatemala, Honduras, and everyone, because we have one team that is called Justice and Equality in the Workplace, and health and safety is one of the major issues, since Houston is a really dangerous city with a higher number of fatalities. We work together and we develop a report also, and this report is developed with Celeste and a team that work all together, the unions who bring all the information, but also the media. Univision also play a key role over here because they work with us in the event. And all the information, all the data that they have for all the fatalities that were reported over the year, they provide it to us, and then we contact all the families and try to be in touch with them, and then with all those workers who die also in the unions. In this report, we try to highlight the areas where all the workers were dying and the kind of work that they were doing. We tried to develop a small bio and a picture with every worker, and we released this report to everyone, to the families. The families come together. They are really part of the band. They are part of the flyer, the designer. They are involved in the logistic things and everything. And also when we work in all the details of the band, so we do a press release, and all the families tell the stories, and they tell about, from their perspective, how hard has been facing that situation, but because that the injury or that fatality can be prevented, and it happened because it was a negligence of the employer or something like that. It's a very moved moment. We bring many balloons. It's one balloon for every people who die, and we release the balloons. So we really make for this event a place that bring everyone together to honor all those who pass away. But also is a very big opening for networking and to bring all our community people of faith, because they open in the event with a prayer, with interfaith prayer, and also politicians. So usually is the senator who comes and join with us. So we're trying to bring all the actors together to raise awareness about the fatalities and how we can, yes, honoring those who live, but also how we can prevent it and work together to tell these stories in order that don't happen again. So at this time, so it just the last one. As you can see right here is all the pictures over there, the flyers and everyone. And the person that is with Celeste, that they work with the report, is Adriana. Adriana, she lost her husband. They were just married. She was really young, but she was working in Univision, and he was working in construction. So because of that, she is very involved in the band since then, and is a really, really major asset on the band, because it provides all the coverage by the media, but also all the information and all the testimonies of the workers. It's a follow-up after the band. It's a follow-up where Univision is giving the stories to all the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Martha. So the next presentation, Tolle Graham from MassCOSH.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay. So I would say that Workers Memorial has become more of a year-round initiative for us, and these bullets are a number of the things that are happening that we're either building up to or organizing for or responding to throughout the year. We collect data as it comes in around fatalities in Massachusetts, and just like Bethany described for the national one, we go to those whole variety of sources that she mentioned, and we're particularly looking at ways to see if the worker is a union member, so we can contact the union, find out if we can get the information about where the families from. We look at fatalities that are happening to see if they are related to one of the campaigns that we're working on, such as if it's a public sector worker. We're going to really look closely at that because we're moving legislation we just got state workers to be covered by our state OSHA, but now we're trying to expand that to municipalities. Or if it's an immigrant worker, have our worker center look more closely at the situation. And actually last year we had a really great collaboration with one of our environmental groups, Clean Water Action, who was working on changing flame retardants requirements for firefighters in our state. And we were able to kind of connect the whole issue around firefighter cancers and fatalities with a mom whose son was killed in a fire a year ago and became very, very active. since then. We have next, can you move the slides for me, Peter? We have a family resource guide that's about 6 pages that we will send out to family members when we can get that contact information. And it has sort of a summary of rights and ways to get involved and become an advocate, sample FOIA letter, some information about workers' comp. We've been working with our area OSHA area OSHA office. They have agreed that they're going to be sending our resource guide out, although they just had some changes in the office and they haven't actually implemented it yet, but they did promise that they're going to do it, and we're looking forward to that happening. Can you move forward? One of the things that we've been doing in this past year is putting out as best as we can for every fatality that comes in, and there have been about 44, so we haven't done every single one, is to do a press release. And I just sort of summarized from our communication and membership coordinator how we do this. We feel like this is a great opportunity for MassCOSH to reframe the story, and it will always lead with sort of what we wanted to have happen. We will sort of add information that, sort of repeating what has already been said in the news, but then we look to add facts that we think reporters might use. And this is a great opportunity for us to use our sort of health tech and legal network to sort of look for additional studies or statistics or some best practices that we all know are important and never really get in the news. And then, of course, we will have one of our awesome staff people or somebody do a quote. You want to move to the next slide, please? And this is just sort of this is just a sort of the first paragraph of one that we just put out last week. Unfortunately, a Dow chemical company, you can see, has a strong statement in the beginning. There's like a space because the other additional paragraphs would be filling in for the other information. And then, we try to end with adding that this is this death is and then the number of the death. So we're sort of continuing to calculate how many deaths are there. And so we want to do the next slide, please. So this is a copy of our report, and I know many of you have seen it. We've been putting it out for many years. We're adding our own, we're very excited that we're going to be doing our own mapping project this year with a collaboration with Northeastern Law School has an innovation lab, and one of the law students has put all of our 10 years of fatality data into that map, and we're creating the different layers, and we will sort of be putting that out as a Worker Memorial Week event. But some of the things that we're looking at, again, like we will have public sector, dots for public sector workers and other layers that may be related to campaigns that we're looking at. We're also going to have dots about where the actual worker lived, and then also where they actually died, because we think that might be information that will be really helpful as well. And the other thing I would say about our report is, like many of you COSH groups around the country, we try to tell the story, the faces behind the hazard and behind the fatality, and then we look to people, to our unions, to people who may be, academics or research or other policy people or family members, to do a responding statement about what could be done to have prevented this, or what should be happening as we move forward. And then we just have a couple of pictures of our Worker Memorial Day event. Actually, we traditionally do it right in front of the State House, and we create a memorial visual. This is a list of all of the people that died, their age, what they were doing, and we have pictures that people hold and then bring over at the end with the flowers, and Like with a lot of these events, we have a media strategy. This is a collaboration with Labor Council, State AFL-CIO, and then we actually take the report and this information and sometimes even this banner and go around to our different labor councils and do smaller events at their meetings, since we know not everybody can get to Boston. So, and then let me see, I think we just have a couple more pictures. That's it. So thank you.
But we wanted to show you a little bit more about resources that that are available. The one being the National COSH website, which Bethany had showed before. So right next to the Fatality Data Project is the Worker Memorial Week tool and menu. So the resources are listed there, and we we have various documents available there for for your use in terms of tips for writing reports and such. Also, we have a whole event calendar that's that we compile every year, and in various ways. We also organize calls from now until the end of April, which will be announcing at the end, our monthly Protecting Workers Alliance call, but we'll have some special calls for sharing information about planning and preparing for worker memorial events and reports around the country. So one of the areas that we have really sort of expanded and continue to expand is the outreach to media in terms of trying to provide support and resources for that. Roger Kerson is our media communications person. Roger, could you want to chime in?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. We have some media outreach tools on here that are the basics you can use to get started for a Worker Memorial Day, or even really for any other event. So there's a template for an advisory, which is what you would send before the event, just to let media know that it's happening, and it's in a basic who, what, when, where format. There's a press release template, which shows kind of how you go into more details of an event that you have organized. We've got some tips on writing letters to the editor and op-eds, and I'd suggest that if you're as you're planning ahead, Workers' Memorial Day, that period at the end of April, is a great time to try and place an op-ed in your local paper, and it would reinforce a live event that you might be having in your community. The guide to preparing a statewide report that's a dead link right now, so we're going to have to fix that one. So don't click over there. On those, sorry about that. On those other items, you know, between now and the end of April, if you're working on an event and have some questions on the best way, and sorry for a little background noise here, on the best way to set up an event or to get engaged with the press, please reach out, Roger at nationalcosh.org, and we'll be happy to work with you in your particular community. I don't want to take up too much time here because everyone's got different events, and there's a lot of different ways to shape it, whether it's a vigil or a press conference or a rally. People do different things depending on resources in their communities. So we'd like to help you in ways that are specific. Please reach out, let us know, and we'll be happy to consult with you on the best way to get media attention in your community. But many people have found that these, even though we do them every year, so news always has to be something different, but the real impact on workers' lives and families is dramatic and is of concern to people, and has gotten good media attention in many and the communities, as you've heard from Tolle and the examples from Texas and Wyoming and elsewhere. So it has been a good strategy for us. And again, please feel free to reach out, Roger at nationalcosh.org, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about what's going on in your area or your community.
Thanks, Roger. So it's essentially we try to have the National COSH website be a link to other resources that are available. So if you have ideas about what additional information we should have, we can link to, please send us information about that. And we'll add it to the website. There's a lot of other resources that are available, whether it's the OSHA office, state plans have obviously files that are available on Fatality. Often they'll do their separate lists of fatalities with descriptions of what was found as part of the investigations. Families, the United Support and Memorial for Workplace Fatality is a very, very helpful site. Local campaigns are being developed as we speak, and I guess we wanted to sort of be coming to the end with just really talking about strategic organizing plans to how do we build health and safety activism, and how can we build organization by what we do in the community. And it's memorializing workers who have been killed is a really important part of this. But it's also how do we build organizations so that we're able to prevent these kinds of incidents from happening, and as all of the ways that we talked about, including Jim Howe's description of the range of problems, the systemic system failures that are happening in so many of these incidents. So the bottom line, and I would encourage Jessica to chime in here, because this is really kind of an effort that we're all trying to work on to make this Worker Memorial Week the most effective in really sort of moving on the prevention area. But so it's an opportunity, and unfortunately the tragedies are occurring, but we can do. Now is the time to really be doing everything that we can to become familiar with what's available out there, the tools, the resources, as well as the information and the stories.